want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Shoot on my shot, boy, I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down. Aiming for greatness, no settling. Kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Taking no L's, yeah, I gotta win. Watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Who running the game now? Foot on the gas, can slow down. No, my team, we holding it down. We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.
Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mac. Tonight, our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the Memphis Grizzlies in the rare 5 o'clock game. Listen, that's a great start time. I'm usually not one to complain about start times, but I feel like the Cavaliers, having games at 7:30, 8 o'clock, sometimes for me personally, recording after can be a whole bitch. So having a game at 5 o'clock, that just makes me feel good because I can hop on right after and express my thoughts. And you know what? It felt like a tale of two halves, maybe even 3 quarters and then a fourth quarter, because the first half, maybe the first 3 quarters of this game were pretty frustrating at times. I know the first half was certainly frustrating, as some of these same issues that this Cleveland Cavaliers team has faced have continued to pop up and rear their ugly head. But we had some bright performances overall, and we had some spectacular performances as a team, and really some individual performances in that fourth quarter that really, really made me feel good. I don't even know where to begin in this one, so I'll just say this, right? The Cavaliers, there is a common theme that has been something to take note of to begin the season for this team, and that is an over-reliance on the perimeter shot. The Cavaliers, yet another game where they attempt 40-plus triples, 32.5% from three-point distance tonight as a unit. That is just 13 of 40 overall. When the team elects to take so many threes, it is often not playing to their strength, especially when you don't have some of your best shooters out there. Darius Garland, we already know he is capable of absolutely shooting flame. We know Max Strus is a very good volume shooter, right? These are the types of players that have been missing. And so you're seeing this team, even Mobley at times. We'll talk about Mobley in a bit, but there is just an overwhelming reliance on that three-point shot rather than leaning on the interior presence that this team can bring to the equation. Now, I know a lot of that is lack of dribble penetration. That's been a discussion that we have been having all season long through these first 14 games or so. Obviously, Darius not being out there plays a role in that. But there are other ways to get the ball down low to your bigs. We saw Jarrett Allen go to work against Miami just a couple of games back. Just to the next game following that against Toronto looked like he was out of the offense at times. And so when he actually plays like a big man, Mobley in particular, I think the Cavaliers have a good shot at winning most games. And if there was any player outside of maybe Donovan Mitchell in that fourth quarter who really impressed me, it was Evan, because Evan stepped up massively in that fourth quarter. Now, Mobley overall on the game would finish with 22 points, 13 rebounds. That's something we haven't been able to say about Mobley all season long, it feels like, right? 13 total rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds tonight overall. That is something that is always nice to see. He had a nice putback jam tonight. I was really, really stoked about that one. But Mobley's play has been incredibly frustrating to in this season because I think we were all envisioning more out of him. We already know that he is a bona fide top 25 player. He's bona fide, honestly, in that 10 to 20 range. But most people were expecting him, including myself, to finally submit himself as a top 10 player. And he has been inconsistent at best this year. There have been games where he has looked absolutely phenomenal. And then there are games where he just looks absent. The game against Toronto was probably one of the worst games that we have seen from him. But how does he do? He comes back next game and gives a much, much better effort. Now, if you want to attribute that loss to Toronto to rest, listen, or tired legs or back-to-back stuff like that, sure. But at the same time, I think the overarching theme for this team all season has been effort. It's been waning, it's been inconsistent, and the thing that frustrates me the most, honestly, is the simple fact that this team is very capable of locking in. They're capable of shutting their team down, or shutting their opponent down, and they can clamp defensively when they are actually locked in, when they actually show effort. And that has been inconsistent to begin this season thus far. And so you saw in that fourth quarter, they honestly turned up the heat from a defensive standpoint. Now, I know that in the latter stages of that fourth, yeah, they started to try and claw their way back, but Cleveland outscored Memphis 32-16 in that fourth quarter. They outscored them overall on the in the second half by a pretty wide margin, 15 points. That's the type of stuff you want to see. They held Memphis to just 39 points in the third and fourth quarters to 54. That's good production. Not only are you putting up points in that second half, but you are making sure that on the defensive end, which has been a big issue for this team, you're making sure that you're giving maximum effort. And so to me, that speaks volumes to this team. And actually, we know what they can be. They just don't show the same effort every single night, which is the worst part about it. But I'll take a win any way that I can get them. This is a win. It's a good win. Now, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. We saw some bad performances out there. And then on the other side of things, right, we do have to call out the fact that John Morant, he only played 6 minutes in this game, 7 points in his 6 minutes. But I'm not going to cry about that. Jarrett Jackson Jr., man, he put up a pretty rough game from an efficiency standpoint. He did score 26 points, but he was 6 of 23 from the field, including 2 of 8 from deep, 12 of 14 from the charity stripe. Just like Donovan in the last game, this is where he did the bulk of his work, was at the free throw line. And speaking of free throws, this was yet another game where these motherfuckers could not knock down a free throw to save their asses, right? 19 of 29 from the charity stripe in this game. That is 65.5%. When we look at the offenders, we got Evan Mobley, who was 5 of 8. Evan continues to frustrate in that category. We have Donovan Mitchell, who missed 3. Don has been uncharacteristically inefficient at times during the season from the charity stripe. He is shooting, he entered tonight shooting 85.2% this season from the charity stripe, right? It feels, at least this is just how it feels, because in terms of the efficiency overall, this is actually one of his more efficient seasons, right? It's not like he's shooting below 80% or anything, because we have seen him flirt with that before, but it just feels like the free throws that he has missed have been unfortunate at times. And this is another game where he's contributing to that. 66.7% is not going to cut it in games where you need those crucial points. Tonight, obviously, they were able to really turn things on in the fourth quarter, but Donovan's got to get better. Really, the whole team has to get better in terms of the free throws. That is something that really continues to frustrate me, but we'll see. This has been an issue for years. I don't know if it'll change this season, but what I can say is that it's frustrating to watch it on a nightly basis, because this team is not some team that is out there that can afford to give these points up, because to start this season, right, we're 9-5 right now through 14 games. But there are a handful of games already that have been decided by such small margins where you need that production. So I hope to see that get better moving forward. But I'll tell you what, a player that really, really stood out, and I've been going to bat for him. You guys know I have. Lonzo Ball. People keep telling me, man, Lonzo just not it. Lonzo's washed. Lonzo doesn't fit. Lonzo doesn't have it. Lonzo can't shoot, yada, yada, yada. That's a bunch of bullshit to me, because Lonzo, yet another performance, because he's already had a handful of them to begin the season, regardless of what people say. Yet another performance where Lonzo is key, comes up crucial, comes up clutch without scoring a ton of points. Lonzo tonight, 9 points, 7 rebounds as a guard, 5 assists, 2 steals. Yes, he did have 5 turnovers. Listen, I get it. You want to be pissed about the turnovers? whatever. That's you. But I look at everything else this dude is bringing to the table, and I'm like, fuck yeah. I mean, listen, I'm a big Isaac Okoro guy. I still wish him the best, only just not against the Cavs when the Bulls play the Cavs. But I wholeheartedly believe that Lonzo fits what we're trying to do here, and he brings all these different things that can elevate this team come a playoff scenario, right? Playoff setting. Lonzo, his two-way play can be really impactful when you get to that point. And to the efficiency standpoint, Lonzo, I pointed this out on social media, but over Lonzo's last 3 games, dude's been hitting that three-point shot. He has been hitting that three-point shot with some efficiency, and it doesn't always look pretty. Listen, I wince every single time he attempts a shot, but I'm not going to sit here and act like he hasn't been elevating. Lonzo, over his last 3 games, is averaging 11 points, 5 assists, and 4.3 rebounds while shooting 50% from the floor. And guess what? 52.6% from three-point distance. I see Ian 7064 says Lonzo just needed to find his rhythm. And that's exactly what this dude is doing. He shot 10 of 19 from three-point range over his last 3 games. He knocked down 3 triples against Miami. He followed that up with knocking down 4 triples against Miami. Then he knocked down 3 tonight on 3 of 5 against Memphis. He is rounding a corner. This is the type of player that this Cavaliers team envisioned when they got him, when they acquired him. This is the type of player that I think is going to be able to contribute at a big time level, assuming that he is healthy. And I've been saying this, I don't so much care about the percentages when it comes to Lonzo this year. I understand that he's never truly been one of those guys who's going to wow you from an efficiency standpoint. I care about health. We're 14 games in now. Lonzo has played 11 games. This is by far the healthiest he has looked in years. And I include last year in that when he made his comeback. Didn't quite look like he had it all. I'll tell you what, this dude is going to be a boon for the Cavaliers come the playoffs, assuming he's healthy. And I truly believe he will be. The Cavaliers have the ability to manage him. They're not playing him in back-to-backs. They're making sure that he is somebody that is going to be able to stay upright. And I get it. They've dealt with a number of injuries, but they've still navigated his minutes pretty well. I would think overall, I think Lonzo played 22 minutes and 2 seconds tonight. And there are clearly points where like it's frustrating because he'll commit one of these really egregious turnovers, or there's a defensive lapse. And I get it. He's not what he once was defensively, but he's still a hell of a disruptor. Still hell of a disruptor out there. And I think that alone, those 2 things, puts a higher ceiling on what he can bring to the table than the player that was sent out for him. And frankly speaking, probably Ty Jerome come the playoffs because of his ability on the defensive end. I get it. Jerome was phenomenal last season during the regular season and in that Miami series because of his ability to catch fire. But to me, Lonzo's ability to impact the game on both ends is what is going to be big time. I see a question down here about Chaz. Erica says, can Lonzo handle playoff physically? Yes, I think so. Listen, you see a lot of these things that he's done this year that oftentimes aren't appreciated enough. The physicality he brings out there is not like a lot of these guys that you think of to be soft. Lonzo's issues have been specifically related to health. If that's the question, like if you're asking, can he handle the physicality without getting hurt? There's no real way to know that. But based upon what I've seen from him to begin the season, I have no problem believing that Lonzo will be healthy come the playoffs and in the playoffs. I think he can handle the physicality. I think that he can do that because to me, I think that you have some of these same questions with Darius, and it's warranted. It's fair. You have some of these same questions with other players on the roster. Can Evan Mobley handle playoff physicality? Can Jarrett Allen handle playoff physicality? And I think you have seen those guys in spurts do big time things in playoffs. I'm thinking back to Evan's big games against the Boston Celtics, at least the one. And with Jarrett Allen, he played phenomenal basketball against Orlando. He played pretty damn well leading up to the final 2 games against Indiana last year. Everything else gets glossed over because of the final 2 games. But I have no reason to believe that Lonzo can't handle that same type of physicality as those other guys can or have rather. So to me, we don't really know, but assuming that he stays healthy or at least is healthy enough to play, I don't have a problem believing that he'll stand up and he'll make it through. But that is just me being a believer, maybe a bit of a homer. But listen, that's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at. I just we won't know. We won't know for sure until that happens. And so I choose to believe. That's exactly where I'm at. All right. Player that many people right now are not looking at too favorably. Honestly, I hate to say it. I said it last time. I keep saying it. It's become a recurring habit. That name back there, my guy, Larry Nance Jr., it's been rough, man. He's having rough stretches. Larry played 4 minutes and 33 seconds tonight. He was a -7. He didn't score. He didn't score at all, committed 3 fouls. I think there will be games where Larry contributes. I also believe that it's fair to say that Larry has not been good this year. Completely fair. And this is a guy that you guys know I'm a huge fan of, has Cleveland roots. He's a fan favorite. He will always remain a fan favorite. The Nances are a great basketball family, great heritage, but it has not been pretty basketball from Larry Nance Jr., which brings up the next name on the list here, Nae'Qwan Tomlin. Nae'Qwan Tomlin, in his 17 minutes and 53 seconds, was a +8. Scored just 2 points. He did commit 3 fouls, but he pulled down 4 rebounds. He dished out an assist, blocked 2 shots, got a steal, was 1 of 4 from the field. But listen, I am sitting here and I am saying to myself, okay, this is not a player that has to necessarily contribute heavily offensively. This dude can earn minutes. This dude can earn a role simply by playing hard, by hustling, and by bringing energy. I'm not seeing that from everybody out there. This dude, this motherfucker, he is out there playing maybe harder than everybody else out there on the floor. He may be raw as hell. Yeah, that's a fair critique. But to me, I sit here and I say to myself, if we're not getting that out of Larry, if we're not getting that out of Jarrett at times, if we're not getting that out of Evan, we're not getting it out of Dean on a possession basis, give him some minutes. And that is not me saying, oh, you should pull anybody out of the rotation specifically for Nae'Qwan Tomlin, but the way that he has been contributing over these last handful of games, it's really, really, really hard to suggest that Tomlin doesn't at least deserve a run at it. And this is the thing that we all have to take into consideration before you completely say and jump on board that Tomlin needs to be in the rotation. He's on a 2-way contract. What does that mean? It means that he's not playoff eligible as of yet, but he has a 50-game eligibility window. Once that passed, the Cavaliers will have to make a decision. Will you convert him? Will you not convert him? If you convert him, he's playoff eligible. I think that's what the Cavaliers are going to end up doing. All credit where it's due. For what it's worth, I'm a fan of Luke Travers. All is fair with Chris Livingston, who just got here. But of that bunch, Nae'Qwan Tomlin has been the most impressive. He deserves a standardized contract should the Cavaliers elect to go in that space. I'm struggling for the word here. But should they want to go that direction, Tomlin is your guy. Over his last 3 games, he is averaging 9.7 points, 5.3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1.7 steals, 1 block, shooting 52.4% from the field. Hasn't hit a 3 yet, but it hasn't mattered as much. He's knocked down 87.5% of his free throws. He's 7 of 8 from the line, and he's a +18. He's making impact out there. And I see the Cavs muse saying down here, the man scores 2 points and gets praise. If you watch that game and the points is what sticks out to you, then you're not watching the correct things. You're not looking at the effort. You're not looking at the hustle. You're not looking at the work on the defensive end. You're not looking at the connectivity that he's brought to the table out there, the energy that he's brought to the table out there. So, yeah, we're going to praise him because he deserves it. Points are not the only measure of success in the NBA. They're really not. There have been a lot of players who've scored below 10 points per game. Hell, there have been a lot of players that don't score 6, 7 points per game and still make an impact. So if points is the measure to you, you're not looking at the right things. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, literally, it's as simple as that. If you know basketball, you know that to be the case. Not trying to pick on you by any means. I don't even know if you're being sarcastic, but I'll just say this. Yeah, his impact out there was clearly felt. And plus minus is one of those stats that's a little fluky at times. Doesn't always tell the truth. That's fair. But neither does points. And he was an impactful player out there, to say the least. HJ17 Gaming says hustle needs to be a stat. I mean, there's a hustle category in regards to stats, right? You know, you look at deflections, things of that nature. But yeah, sheer hustle it feels like it should be because it's so hard on a stat sheet. If you didn't watch a game, which a lot of people don't, if you didn't watch a game, you would think, oh, he only scored 2 points. He didn't do shit. But really, in reality, if you watch a game, you know that that's just a false statement. I mean, seriously. If Flexpo says, what do you think the key is to where the Cavs are weak in the rebounding category, good down the stretch, but for this not to be so bad on a consistent basis, some rebounds to be easy to not get? I think it's hard to say. To me, one of the biggest problems this team has had has been the long rebounds, and I think that is not really on. It's not on the bigs as much as people want to make it. It's on the guards. It's on the guards a lot more than people want to admit. Donovan Mitchell has to be better. Lonzo's actually been very good in regard to that. Sam, there are points where he crashes the glass. Craig Porter Jr., he is, it doesn't feel like he should be lumped into that, but the guards on those long rebounds, you lump the wings in there too, whether that be DeAndre Hunter, who ball watches at times defensively, pisses me off. There are just various rebounds that occur where they were perfectly attainable from Cleveland if they were in the right position or if they crashed the glass a bit better. And to me, like, that's got to be better. That to me is one of the biggest things that's hurt them. The defensive rebounds have been absolutely terrible, and so many of them have been those long ones where it's all about positioning and it's all about effort. That's really what it boils down to if you're looking at the problems from a rebounding perspective for this Cavaliers team, because it's pretty damn bad overall. I think that you instantly see that the Cavaliers as a team have struggled in this area, and I'm pulling the numbers up as we speak. They entered today overall just not really pulling a ton down overall. They're 18th in the NBA at 43.4. as a unit. Defensive rebounds, however, they're 27th. That's terrible. 28.9%, 28.9 per game. A lot of that, you would look at that number and say, oh, well, that's Jarrett Allen. That's Evan Mobley. They're not pulling enough down. No, it's not just that. That's a part of it. That's fair. There are hustle and effort rebounds in the paint where you're like, oh, Jarrett didn't position himself. He didn't really show enough effort to get that. That's fair. And they're also the same for Evan Mobley. But a lot of times what I'm seeing is that the long rebounds are perfectly attainable. The Cavs guards and wings just aren't pulling them down like they should, or they're not chasing them down the way that they should. And to me, that's what frustrates me the most, because I think, yeah, it's easy to diagnose rebounding as a problem, but what's the actual issue here? Defensive rebounding percentage, the Cavaliers, that is an area where they currently rank 19th. I mean, that's not great. It's just not. I mean, they're at 67.6%. And you're talking about contested rebounds. It's a little more complicated, right? As of right now, the contested rebounded percentage for the Cavs is at 31%. That is the fourth highest in the NBA. Fourth highest in the NBA. I mean, it's got to be better overall. That's all I'm trying to say here. But we'll see. We'll see. Cavs Mew says, I watched the game and it took Donovan to take over in the fourth to win against Memphis. No Ja, no Jerome, 3-4 core, 4 playing. If you watch the game against the Miami Heat where the bench played, basically it was the Cavs C team. sometimes you have to throw out who is out there and just look at what you're actually getting from an on-court product perspective. The Cavs starters clearly more talented than Miami. The Cavs starters clearly more talented than the players that were out there making the impact. But sometimes hustle, effort, and energy is not something that everybody shows. And I know this is in reference to the box score watchers and the Nae'Qwan Tomlin comment, but no, man, it's not. It wasn't just Donovan. It didn't just take a Donovan takeover. It was an Evan Mobley great performance in the fourth. It was Lonzo Ball contributing heavily. It was Nae'Qwan Tomlin's energy and hustle out there. You just have to be able to diagnose what you're actually watching a little better. Chad Zerker says Max was good at grabbing the rebounds where everybody else was standing around ball watching. That's an underrated part of what Max Strus does, what he brings to the table. He's a better rebounder than given credit for. And he actually showcased that in his first season with Cleveland, right? Where he averaged 4 rebounds per game. 4.8 actually with Cleveland during the 2023-24 season. 4.3 last year in terms of the defensive glass. Yeah, he's out there. He's somebody that is going to give you some good effort. He truly does. But I don't know. He's missed. I guess that's all I'm trying to say. Ian 764 says Cavs without Tyson right now too. He fights for rebounds. That's another one. Jalen Tyson has been a bright spot for this Cavs team dealing with that concussion. Hopefully returns next game, but Tyson is another guy who he may not be averaging a ton of rebounds, but he's going to give effort. He's going to give hustle. He's going to try, especially on the offensive glass, to get some putbacks out there. And you love to see that. Spody Tuggett says ZO2 controls the offense even without the ball. True point guard. This is something that was brought up during the Chasedown's coverage of Cavs Media Day when they had Lonzo Ball on for a minute. And they asked him about being a playmaker off the ball and how that's an area that he's improved in. And I can completely agree with that, right? Lonzo is not necessarily a guy that always has to have the ball in his hands to be a connective piece of tissue out there. It's just not been the case for him. And even without driving the basketball a ton, because it's never really been something that he does, he's able to get his guys in spots. One play in particular stands out to me in terms of his connectivity and how he sets up the offense. The entry pass to Evan Mobley, I think it might have been the first quarter. Entry pass to Evan Mobley, which leads to a double, which leads to a kick out to a open Sam Merrill, who knocks down the 3-point shot. It's little things like that that can make such a big difference in getting spacing for one and getting some offensive flow, especially if you're not a guy that can't necessarily be a big volume driver. And for Lonzo, that's really the case. Like when he's a player that has always excelled in transition playmaking, fast break playmaking, somebody that when in the half court can make those entry passes, can swing the ball from side to side, can hit the occasional lob, but he's not really a guy that's going to beat you with the drive. So you have to find ways to get guys involved. Truly. Reaper says, who do you rather have in rotation, Tomlin or Tyson? I mean, if I had to choose, I think that's not really a question. If I'm being honest and I'm being objective, it's Tyson. Hands down, 10 out of 10. But I still believe that Tomlin should be in. I still think that he deserves a look. You're just in the back end of the rotation. But being that Tyson has started the season the way he has, there's only one true answer to that. It's Tyson. Tyson has been a very, very reliable 3-point shot. Tyson has been a pretty damn good defender. Tyson has been a good rebounder. Tyson has offered the Cavaliers a really good, cheap option off that Cavaliers bench or in the starting lineup as an off-ball shot. So to me, it's 100% Jalen Tyson. But that's not to take anything away from Tomlin, who has showcased that he believes that he belongs rather in that back end of the rotation. Jonah Quest says Tyson plus Tomlin over Nance. It's hard to say, but yeah, I mean, it's starting to look that way. And I love Larry, but that's really what it's looking like. Chaz Erica says, I really do hope you guys convince me on Zoe by the season's end. Honestly, Erica, I don't think we have to. I think Lonzo's going to do that. Again, I'll repeat, over this last 3-game stretch, Lonzo's played some pretty damn good basketball. 11 points, 5 assists, 4.3 rebounds while shooting 50% from the field, including 52.6% from 3-point range on just great volume. You wouldn't think it, but he's taking 6.3 triples per game over his last 3 games, and he's knocking down 3.3 per game. I don't think Lonzo needs me, and I'm going to do it, right? I really love the fact that the Cavaliers have Lonzo on the roster, but Lonzo doesn't really need me to to convince you. He'll do that himself, assuming, and this is me hoping, obviously, it's not set in stone, but assuming he's healthy, I think Lonzo will prove to you why he is going to be a playoff riser. HJ17 Gaming says Tomlin could really be like B. Tomlin could really be like Obi Toppin type or player in his prime. Yeah. Obi Toppin seems like a pretty good comparison, I suppose. Cavs Moose says Travers just taking up a 2-way spot. He is what he is, but that really isn't a big deal, I guess. I mean, yeah, when you really think about it, how many 2-ways actually turn out to be quality rotation players? This is a 2nd-round pick, a shot in the dark, a dart throw, right? No offense to Luke. He's had some great performances in spot minutes at times. We just saw that, right, against Miami. It's a pretty good performance against Miami, by the way. But we have yet to see him translate it consistently and or knock down that 3-point shot. And that is a swing skill for Travers. So it remains to be seen. It's still possible. But I'm not going to outright say he's like just taking up a 2-way spot, because this is exactly what those spots are reserved for. Developmental pieces. That's really what it is. Jay Diaz says, get Nance out of the rotation. Sorry, he is my guy, but he'd even understand. I mean, that's what it feels like, man. And I hate to say that. It sounds like poison coming out of my, out of my mouth, off my lips. I hate that. But it's starting to look that way. It's starting to look like that way. And I think that as a professional, that is okay. Kenny is not just going to give up on him, though. He'll give him every opportunity to contribute. And I know that it's felt like he's had a short leash. It really has. It sounds like he's had, well, not sounds, it seems like he has had quite a short leash as of late, because he has. I mean, when you start to look at the minutes per game over the last couple, it's felt like it's been all over the place, right? 25 minutes. Then over the last 5 games prior to tonight, played 25 minutes against Atlanta. He played 15 against Philly. He played 14 against Washington, 19 against Miami, 7 against Toronto, and then he plays about 4 or 5 tonight. It's all over the place. And I still am a believer in Larry. Maybe this is just a rough stretch, but sometimes if a player is going through something like this, combined with the fact that players below him on the depth chart are starting to show out, the writing feels kind of on the wall. And I don't think that's crazy to say. Whew. Yeah, I mean, I hate it, but it just seems like the case. HA17 Gaming says, I was so hyped for the Larry signing too. JD says, I've noticed Nance. Yeah, I mean, listen, I was very hyped about it. I'm still glad that he's back. Casimir says, you were hyping Nance 3-point percentage before he barely takes any. I mean, listen, I was not going to do that. Larry returning to the Cleveland Cavaliers is a big deal. He's a career 35.1% shooter from deep. He was coming off of back-to-back seasons shooting 40% or better from 3-point distance. It wasn't just Atlanta. He played 61 games for New Orleans this season prior to that, and he did shoot 41.5% from the 3-point distance. Yeah, the volume left a lot to be considered, but he also shot very well last year. And again, a limited sample size for Atlanta, but it's not as if we haven't seen Larry knock down that 3-point shot. So yes, if you're being objective and not just being a prisoner of the moment, you can understand why anybody would have hyped up that 3-point percentage. And again, we're 14 games in. It doesn't mean that it has to stay that way, because there are a handful of players that are experiencing slumps in their own right. But it's fair to say that he has not necessarily come out of the gate shooting the basketball all that well. And that's perfectly fine to admit. I'm right there with you in that regard. But to sit here and try and, victory lap because I said that he would be a big deal from 3-point distance prior to the season, I don't put a whole lot of weight in that. Sorry, Cavs Muse. Talking in Grub Media says some fans still want this team to run out the gate like last year, but some fans fail to realize that injuries and personnel changes make that impossible. Yeah, and I think we all want to believe that the Cavaliers enter the season with one thought in mind and say, oh, experimentation and, evaluation was the name of the game to begin the season. And I've been a big proponent of that. But I also think that we have to be honest with ourselves and say to ourselves that it's not just about that experimentation with the lineups. There have been real issues because of the personnel who has missed games. Darius is out. Max has been out all year. Jalen's out right now, right? There are a number of players on this roster. It honestly feels like every regular rotation player has missed time at some point already. And we're just 14 games in. But yeah, I agree. I mean, they were never going to replicate the start they had last year. I hope people realize that. I just think that people hoped for better in terms of the effort. And I can live with them losing games earlier on in the season in the name of evaluation and effort, or evaluation and experimentation. What I hate to see is lackadaisical effort. What I hate to see is a team that just doesn't look like they care about the regular season. And I said this to, somebody on social that, I interact with on a pretty frequent basis. It feels as if this team is experiencing a Super Bowl hangover, but they haven't actually done shit in the postseason outside of winning a series. It honestly feels like they're experiencing some form of a Super Bowl hangover in regard to the effort, but they haven't done anything. It is the honest phenomenon. It is so weird. It's not just the simple fact that the effort is disengaged at times. It's not just the simple fact that they're just chucking up threes at times. It is honestly just the body language from game to game. It does literally look like they're going through a Super Bowl hangover. But I think they can get out of that. I think that if you can get some of these guys healthy, they'll start to look a lot more like they did last year. But I'm not going to lean in one direction too far just yet because it's just 14 games in. But just like I said earlier on, a win is a win. I'll take them any way that I can. I'm hoping that as the season wears on, that becomes less of an issue, but we shall see. We shall see. Long season ahead of us, 14 games in. And again, I am not good at math, but we have a lot left, right? We have a lot left to go on this season. And I'm hoping to see continued development from a number of these guys. I know Evan hasn't started this season the way that we wanted him to, but I still believe that it's still possible for him to take that leap. I know that Darius Garland hasn't been healthy, but I still believe that there's enough time for him to get there and to get back to the same all-star levels of impact that he had last year. I know that Jarrett Allen's involvement of the offense hasn't been what we want it to be, and his effort at times has not been the greatest, but I also believe that Jarrett is an undervalued player for what he brings to the table. And I mean, that's where we're at. Thank you, HJ. Says we only 68 games left. Thank you. I cannot tell you guys how bad I am at math on the spot at times. It's bad. Cavs King 2016 says Tomlin takes whose minutes. I don't think it's as simple as that. I think that Kenny legitimately believes in Dean Wade, legitimately believes in Larry Nance Jr., legitimately believes in Jarrett Allen, or it's not really Jarrett Allen you have to worry about. It's really between Dean, Larry, and that's really it right now, to be quite honest with you, because as things currently sit, Nae'Qwan is a 4, in my opinion. I think that he can contribute in other positions, namely the 3. But if I was a betting man, I would say that I consider him a 4. Now, entering tonight's game, He came in playing 71% of his minutes at the 3, but that's not always indicative of where your minutes will come when the rotation returns to full strength. Now, small sample size, but to me, I think the players that he is battling with minutes with is Dean and Larry, and probably more so Larry. As you see, Larry's minutes, they've gone down the last 2 games. 4 minutes, 33 seconds tonight, 7 minutes against Toronto. And there it is. It's literally right there. And Nae'Qwan plays 17 minutes and 53 seconds tonight. So it's kind of hard to really say and justify benching Dean. It's extremely hard to justify that when he is so valued from a defensive standpoint. You saw him do that at points tonight, right? Dean was a plus 22 out there. People, for some reason, people don't really like Dean Wade, don't really value Dean Wade as much as they should. And don't go through these stretches where it's just like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? There'll be stretches where, like, offensively speaking, he's literally a net negative, it feels like. But on the defensive end, he does so much out there that in terms of wing defense, that it's really hard to justify not playing him in the rotation. Even if he's struggling offensively, the Cavaliers, without Isaac Okoro on the roster, they need a Dean Wade. And yeah, I know Jalen Tyson factors in here too, but Jalen's going to play. So I don't know what the right answer is with Tomlin. All I know is that Tomlin feels like he deserves minutes, at least as that 10th man, 9th man, maybe. But I don't know. We'll have to see. They have a couple of decisions to make once the team returns to full strength, because it's really, really incredibly deep. But I don't know, man. I'm really hard to say. JD says Wade is stealing money, can't lie. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, he's making like $6 million, right? I mean, isn't he still on that deal is paying him like 6.6 million or something like that? For what Dean is, what he brings to the table, is he really stealing money? I don't think so. I mean, he's in the final year of his contract. He's making 6.6 million. He does enter unrestricted free agency at the end of the season, meaning he's on an expiring deal, meaning he could potentially be moved at the deadline, but I don't think he will be. I think he provides you just enough to say that he doesn't necessarily he's not stealing money. He's just not necessarily what you, from a consistency standpoint, he doesn't always wow you. And that's the biggest thing. Confidence and consistency with Dean. I don't know, guys. That's probably really the only takeaways from this game. I'm just glad they were able to pull out a W. And I know that people are going to continue. I see the comments down here about the playoffs. Cavs says Wade doesn't show up in the playoffs. Who has? Tell me right now, outside of Donovan Mitchell, who can you say on this roster has showed up most of the time in the playoffs? Yeah, Jarrett Allen honestly has. People won't give you that name, but Jarrett's been inconsistent too. Those last 2 games of the playoffs, god-awful, atrocious. First 7, great. But how many of these guys actually have? So I think that's a disingenuous statement. Most of this team hasn't actually had a real impact. Darius, people love to shit on Darius about his defense. But guess what? The issue has not been Darius Garland from a defensive standpoint. Darius Garland has not actually shown up offensively in the playoffs outside of the 2 games against Miami, and maybe a game. You can give him a game in the Orlando series, and a game. He wasn't terrible against New York, but this is not a player who routinely has shown up. His percentages have been rough, and he struggled with health. And that's me being objective. I love Darius Garland, but not many on this team have actually shown up. So it is far be it from me to sit here and call out Dean Wade for not showing up when most of the team hasn't actually done that either. We'll see though, but we're 14 games in. We're not going to be able to answer any of those questions. So none of those, hate to break it to you, Cavs Muse, but none of these playoff things that we're saying right now, or this guy doesn't do it in the playoffs, there's no point in even talking about that because we're not in the playoffs right now. All we know, we know about what happened last year. We know what happened in the year prior to that, but Is that really fair? A fair assessment if you're talking about it during the 14th game of a regular season? Playoff criticism is fair, Chaz Erica. I agree with that. But what I push back on is saying that this player doesn't do this or this player can't do that when we're not there yet. It is as simple as that to me. Yeah, criticize all you want. I just gave you a criticism of Darius Garland. I was pretty fair in that assessment. But to me, I think that like we shouldn't even be worrying. We shouldn't even be worrying about what XYZ player has shown in the last year's playoffs or years prior to that without even, because this is such a different, it feels like a different Cavaliers team than last year. It honestly is. It literally is. We have multiple rotation players that weren't in the rotation last year or on the roster for that matter. We didn't have Larry Nance Jr. last year. We didn't have Thomas Bryant last year. We didn't have Jalen Tyson in the rotation truly last year. We didn't have Lonzo Ball on the roster. A lot of different things, a lot of different names. So this is a completely different team. But I do agree with Ian 7064 that says, this says, not you, Floyd. It says Cavs are soft, run from contact. I think that it's a little more gray in there. You can make a case, but the one thing that I hate is when people just label the soft thing. Like there's a little bit more nuance in that than labeling the Cavaliers soft in regards to everything. It's not the excuse for everything. It's fair to say, but it's not an excuse for everything. There's more nuance than that. Chaz Erica says, I agree on both ends. Long season, enjoy the ride. Absolutely. Enjoy the journey. That's what makes things that much sweeter in the end. Ian 7064 says, been hearing it's a make or break year for Dean for a while now, and he always survives. This is the year, though. I think, yes, people, I'm guilty of this too. I'm not going to say I'm not, but what I will say is this. He's in a contract year. He hasn't been in a contract year for the last 3 years. This is the contract year for him. So it literally, quite literally, is a make or break season for Dean. We'll see what happens. We'll see what ends up happening with Dean's contract situation if the Cavaliers elect to just let him play out the rest of the season and then elect to let him walk rather than trying to capitalize on his expiring. But the problem with that is that you have, due to the CBA, due to the second apron, you got to make money and salaries match. And so it is way more likely that they just elect to, let Dean play it out and see if he can finally contribute in the playoffs than to actually deal him. That's what is going to end up happening, in my opinion. But we'll see. Time will tell. I think that's a good stopping point for tonight. I'm really pushing for these guys. I know that 14 games into the season and 9-5 record is not exactly what we expected, but it's also not the worst thing either. There have been some positives. There have been a lot of negatives. There have been a lot of bad habits that I hope this team squashes, but I have a lot of faith in them. And that being the case, like I always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out to me, I can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you want to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot I said review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you said invite. If you want to support the pod in a small but helpful way, consider becoming a member over on Patreon. You can do so for as little as $1. Hell, you can do it on YouTube too. But even if you don't, I'll still be here to make the Cavs content because I know that we both love this team. Go Cavs.